man.
I can't believe it. I can't believe that I was in 48 episodes.
Yeah, it's not even. It's what's amazing is I remember last week I called you. Last Saturday was our 1 year anniversary of the channel.
I even forgot that.
That's all right.
Happy 1 year anniversary.
Now I grabbed something. Ashley, Amber, your other sisters.
Asia and Aaron.
Episode 48 or 49.
All 4 A's. I can't believe it. Starting with A.
We're three A's and an E. My parents thought that they were gonna have a boy and a girl, and it was gonna be Ashley and Zachary, A and Z, beginning and ending. And then when they kept having girls, they were just like, well, I guess we'll just keep naming A names until we get a boy, and they never got a boy.
You said the Aaron is with an E.
Aaron with an E. She's the
okay. I was trying to get 4 A's there together. Thought about it when I said Ashley and Amber, and I said, well, I bet there's 2 more A's.
Almost.
No, almost. Yeah.
Aaron ruined it for everybody.
Yeah.
She made sure she diversified y'all portfolio. Oh. Y'all used to be all A words or all A's. Oh my goodness. Okay, cool.
You should have seen me this morning, Josh. What I said, Nugenics?
Yes, Nugenics is what you want to say. Yeah.
Been on TV. I drank that Nugenics, man, and I had a whole lot of pep. It didn't last too long, but it was there.
Hey, man, that's progress.
It was there. I had the energy for about an hour.
Maybe that's all you needed.
Well, I'm sure I got to read the label. Maybe they said you're supposed to take 9 a day instead of 3.
No, let's not try that, Grandpa. Let's not go over the label. We don't need any Nugenics related fatalities or injury.
Yeah.
It might not be. I don't even know what that stuff's made out of.
Oh wow! Well, it's a beautiful day out there.
It is. It is. Yeah, well, let me introduce people, Grandpa. This is you probably seen her on an episode before for Thanksgiving, but this is my sister Amber, legally sister-in-law, but I don't fuck with that. I mean, screw with that. We're now demonetized. So, but not like we make money off this. But yeah, this is family. Of course, Grandpa does no introduction for that. Uncle Pooh he's in Africa currently, as you can see by his background. He's getting his beer.
Oh, you're online?
Yeah, we're doing live. We're live.
I didn't know. Freddie hadn't got back. I didn't know you were online.
Well, I wanted to start because I didn't know how long people had.
Okay. I'm glad you did.
So, as the newcomer to the group, I know I was here for the Thanksgiving episode, but break down for me how it works. I know we sit and we shoot the breeze and we drink beer together, but what's your usual method?
Oh, I mean, we rate the beers first. We taste, just talk for a little bit. Normal Uncle Pooh Bear will hit us with a beer fact. Grandpa will hit us with a real beer fact. And Uncle Pooh Bear stuff is legit. Me and Grandpa.
He doesn't drink beer. He drinks a pretender.
He drinks a pretender. What is
anything that costs what he's paying for? It can't be real beer. Well, like me, a hard worker,
Grandpa's definition of a beer is something that's not too expensive, preferably nothing over $5.
Now you're talking. Not no one.
No taste buds are factored into any of this.
He doesn't like stouts.
As long as it's wet, he wants it. Shame.
I had kind of laid away from beer there for a good while. My goal is to run that 15-second 100 meters.
There we go. That's what I'm
saying. Every time I mention, they laugh.
I'm not laughing.
And they say, "Oh, that old man, he can't even walk. He talking about running a 15-second 100 meters." But I came to the conclusion that this Japanese guy, he's same age as me. If he can do it, I should be able to.
Tanaka?
That's how I see it.
What you say?
Go for it, Grandpa. I believe it.
Grandpa been talking about this Tanaka man for years.
I've been talking so long. Every time they see me, they say, "There you go again with that stuff about 100 meters."
I've been waiting for Tanaka to respond to Grandpa's many challenges.
You know what though? I hope that he happened maybe accidentally get onto this, then he'll know that he's the king of the hill, you know. And he should know, like in the old Wild West, you know, the gunslinger always looking for the fast gun, you know.
And
You can't
you
stay
hunt
on
him down, huh?
And he's a world class runner. So you know you can't stay there forever. I don't
That's
think.
That's your technique, huh? You smoking him out, huh? You go on YouTube,
yeah.
start smoking him out. Then he's got to, at some point, he's gonna have to race you.
Yeah. You know what I did this morning? The
What?
first thing I did when I got up was I rubbed my knees. I got a procedural, you know, rub my knees, take the joint stuff for for joint pain, and then I take my blood booster, and then my Nugenics, you know, and then I'm ready to roll, you know.
Yeah.
I got a plan.
Got a whole routine in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, Grandpa, let's get it rolling. Oh, to answer Amber's question though, we rate our beers and then we get into the topic, which I think today we talked about would be about how this quarantine has affected your what you say, sped up your transition period. Like where you doing now that stuff is starting to relax, and how has it affected you? Like I mean, you know, it could be anything, but Grandpa, go first. What's your beer you drinking today?
What I'm drinking?
Yeah.
I'm drinking a favorite. This is a Michigan favorite. It's got a lot of class to it, you know. Got a lot of here. If I'd have had my glass, I could have showed you when I poured it, you know, that this is the real deal, you know. But it's Michigan Miller's Genuine Draft.
Genuine draft.
Genuine. Of course, we got somebody in the audience don't believe it. We won't pay him no mind. You don't know good beer when he tastes it.
Hey, the fact that you already feel attacked just shows that you brought a subpar beer to the fight.
Or for the battle.
Yeah.
Build it up.
You brought a knife to a gunfight.
Oh, okay.
What you got?
Yeah. All right, Amber.
All right, so I will be drinking a Cocoa Cafe, a chocolate, vanilla, cinnamon, and coffee milk stout from Three Taverns Craft Brewery, and they're a local brewery that's out here in Atlanta that I was checking out before Outside closed down earlier this year.
Before Outside.
Yeah, it looks like y'all kind of gathering up on me. Freddie gonna have one of them beers I ain't never heard of before.
Hey, just like people are riding in the streets.
It sort of reminded me of Sean with the Starbucks latte, you know, with
latte.
Beer latte. That's what we'll call it.
Whatever it is. He got that machine now. He makes his own, you know. I said Starbucks is gonna be in trouble because I think their stock probably went down about 30%. What do you think? But Sean was drinking.
I seen Sean posted a picture the other day. He had some Starbucks.
All right.
He just posted the picture the other day. He had some Starbucks.
Oh yeah. Was it homemade? Because that's a Starbucks machine. You know, he got all that Starbucks.
They're going back in the office now.
Oh yeah, that is correct. Yeah. Yeah, because I think I seen something about I don't know whether it was Sean. Yeah, he playing about the music, you know, in the courtyard. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I'm with it.
What you got, Uncle Pooh Bear?
I got my Hailstorm bourbon barrel aged Vlad II blueberry maple. So remember the one I was telling you tastes like blueberry maple pancakes?
Is that stout?
Yeah, it's a stout. Bourbon barrel aged stout.
So you said
it's like 14% alcohol, 14.1%.
You said Hailstorm?
Yeah. It's a local brewery spot around here by my house.
I get that. I'll get the name of the beers later. I was trying to type it down, but it's whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I got Grandpa was talking about this a few months ago. I think it's Grolsch.
Oh yeah, Grolsch. See now, it's 2 and 2. See.
The left side of the screen is drinking trash. Right side is. That's the division here. It's the left versus the right.
Grandpa swore up and down. This was one of the the best beers that was ever made. So I was like, I saw it at the store. I got to try it.
Good beer now. I don't know
Hey,
about
it's wet.
now, but it's a good. Like, the best beer was European.
It's wet. I'll give it that.
Can't find it. Wow. I'll let that go because I can't even remember the name.
Oh, you got a pre-rate.
It was good, though. It was good.
Pre-rate. What's your rating before you taste it?
Who are you speaking to?
Hey, you first, Grandpa.
Me?
Yeah.
This is genuine draft. It's got to be at least a 5.5 to start with. I can always work up to a 6. I can't get beyond, with the local stuff.
Okay. What you got? All right, well, go, Amber.
So I am a huge fan of anything that is chocolate. I've had breakfast milk stouts before with just oatmeal in them that were So I think that because it's got the chocolate and the coffee and the milkiness to it, I'm going to start it off at a 5 and we'll go from there. I'm going to start at a 5 out of 10.
Okay. You go, Uncle Pooh.
Okay. I'm expecting like an 8.5, 8.5.
Oh, okay.
Is that beer quality or is that price?
That's beer quality. It costs more than that.
I don't know what it costs,
I guess
I'm just a common man. I never get beyond. I never get beyond the local stuff.
Hey, I can tell if you think that's good beer.
I'm giving the smell of it.
Hey,
I give this a 4 or 5 to start. I don't have high expectations.
Oh,
I never really had a good relationship with beer that came in like one of these bottles. So we'll see.
I remember at Christmas time, you had beer that came in a bottle like that. I think they called it like Irish Scotch beer or something like that. Yeah. It was an experience. It was definitely an experience, one we did not need to repeat after that one bottle.
Oh, yeah. It was really thin. So, well, I'm about to taste mine, so y'all can go ahead.
Well, I know what I can almost grade you because you're drinking the good stuff. There's no way you're gonna come out under a 6.
It doesn't really taste like anything, strangely enough. It's not even like a fizz. That's weird. Wow, that's like nothing. It's like it has like a real short fizzy taste, but it tastes like a more.
Tastes like it's wet.
No, it tastes like a less citrusy. It tastes like less citrusy Corona.
Well, let's give it a ranking now.
Okay.
Good stuff is
it's beer.
2?
No, it's just beer.
He gave it up. He got it up to a 2. Shoots for the sky here.
Well, evidently you haven't never had any, huh?
I'm not going to offend my grandfather. It's not going to go up though. It's going to stay like at a 4, 5, 5. It's all right. It's beer. That's what
it gets the job done.
Yeah, well,
it doesn't taste like Grandpa. It honestly doesn't really taste like anything. It tastes like an even more watered down version of Corona.
It tastes like water.
Pops is disgusted.
I thought you knew quality beer.
He's disgusted with you.
I thought I did. I don't have the palate, Grandpa. Maybe I'm not up in enough years to get up here yet.
I think you've been influenced by Freddie. You taking the good stuff and you dropping it in grade. You sure you're not being influenced on that?
That's what happens when you taste better beer.
It's okay. There's nothing out of this world. What about you, Amber? What's yours?
So mine, it's all right. You can definitely taste the coffee and the chocolate. So I can definitely, if breakfast beer was a real thing, which it should not be, but sometimes it happens, like this would definitely be a breakfast beer. I'd say, and then it's got, hold on,
breakfast beer is a real thing, by the way.
Breakfast beer is a real thing. Well,
we're making it one.
Yeah.
This is definitely a breakfast beer. I wouldn't call it sweet, and it's got a bit of an aftertaste to it, but you can really taste mostly coffee and chocolate. So I'd give it I'd give it about a 6.5, 7 after I've had the chance. And then I'm not saying that I would run out to the store on Christmas Eve to stock up the house right before more people came to the house, but I'd sit and I'd drink this again. I'd drink this right after I felt right in the morning time. I had something on my stomach and I just wanted to have a relaxing day. I didn't have anything to do later on. I'd drink again.
Your baby's so clever. You hear those notes she just gave y'all?
Yeah.
That's knowledge. That's knowledge. Drop that knowledge, man.
I got
So when I wake up in the morning sometime, I say, well, no, I'm not going to eat no breakfast. I'll have me a beer. Breakfast beer?
way.
Oh, okay, then.
Well, did you
done that before?
About this breakfast beer. Yeah, so when I say I'm going to have me a beer, that's in line with the breakfast beer, right?
This is the one. Stick with me. I'll send you a case from Atlanta before I blow this popsicle joint and never come back.
Whoa.
We're gonna have to get into that when you and after this. Uncle Pooper, what is your what's your rating? Did you do yours?
Yeah, I stick with an 8. 8.5. Yeah.
You're hanging on though, man, with that 8, right?
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna go down to an 8. I had said 8.5.
Your grip though, but you're gonna stick with that 8, eh?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
8's a little heavy, you know.
Yeah, it's like maybe I need to age it a little longer, so like the sweetness slows down even more, and like more of the bourbon, the like alcohol come out. That's kind of. It's like super sweet, but I like sweet. I ain't gonna, I'm a sweet wine drinker, like all of that, so I like it. But yeah, so I go with an 8.
Oh, okay.
I like. I gotta adjust Joshua's rating 4.5. He probably meant 2.
He probably meant 7.
Yeah, I doubt it.
That is a good beer. Grolsch, love it.
What's your ranking? Saying Grolsch is a good beer, you might have had too much already. We had to cut you off early in the show.
I don't want everybody to know about genuine draft, so I'm gonna stick with the 5.5, and then I wind up with 6 near the end. If I go too high, everybody be buying it, and I can't find none at the store.
You protecting the stock, huh?
There you go. Now
all 60 people that watch our show are definitely clamoring for that.
They're clamoring for that.
Hey, we got that many.
Grandpa can't find it in the store. Then he's got to go find those 60 followers and try and get one beer for
Grandpa,
did you watch the show where Grandpa was telling me the story about how he single-handedly kept Strohs afloat for like 20 years?
That was my thing, But I was surprised.
He brought it back.
Made stuff, to UK. Where we go down there to
the Detroit Beer Company or whatever. Yeah.
And I thought, stores that, long time gone. You tell me, no, it's still around.
Oh yeah. There's like 2 or 3 different types. They make.
Unfortunately, them and Miller still around.
I don't really have a problem with Strohs. Strohs isn't that bad.
Oh yeah.
I think it's better than this Grolsch.
Hey, did you have an Altus last week?
Yeah, I still got some Altus.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because that was one of the beers, the Altus and the Schlitz. And that was, I guess,
I've never heard of
Schlitz. Laverne and Shirley.
You never heard of Schlitz?
No, I think I have.
I said Milwaukee's best. He had Altus, but I was wondering if it come out of that Milwaukee thing.
I don't know.
You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah, I'm kind of
Budweiser?
I don't think they're familiar
no,
with the beer.
I was just saying Schlitz, as long as which there was Schmitz, and I think there was Schlitz, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I have to look it up.
Anyway, Milwaukee seems to
small liquor. Yeah, the blue bull.
Oh, wait a minute. I've seen the Blue Bull. I didn't know that was called.
Yeah, trash.
We might have done an episode with that already, Grandpa, if it was the Blue Bull.
Yeah.
When I brought that 40 to the house.
That sounds about like it. Yep.
Yeah, I remember that was heavy. I remember that it was like drinking wet bread.
Man,
You
bro,
bought a
college beer.
Getting from gift. You bought a 40 to the house?
Yeah, I think we did 240 episodes.
We did.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I drank a 40. I'm going to get one.
Is a 40 technically beer?
Yes.
Malt liquor.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I remember when I made your sister a real Detroiter by my standards. We went to the what is it? Dang, I keep forgetting the name of we went to Belle Isle. I took her there with a brown paper bag of Pabst Blue Ribbon, and we drank it on the fountain steps.
You had my sister drinking beer out of a paper bag on the steps of Belle Isle.
Yeah, on her birthday.
So proud of her.
On her birthday.
On
It was
her
a special
birthday,
occasion.
she did
Yeah, I
it.
had to make it romantic. I was like, I didn't know where she was going.
You did a good
We
job.
went-
It was a brown paper bag.
It was absolutely a brown paper bag. Yes.
Okay.
Classic.
Very romantic.
You rolled the
See?
It was classic.
Nothing like a brown paper bag, with your beer inside.
Classic.
It was like I made sure to find a seedy looking liquor store on the east side. Went in there and ran out real fast. I paid for it. Ran out real fast, like I stole it. Just like the ritual requires you to.
Right.
Gave her an experience for her birthday gift.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this was like last year. Now, this is before we had the baby.
Yeah. That's okay. Maybe next time he can drink a bottle while you guys sip a very small something together.
That'll be the day.
What is your shirt saying? I say for and profit, but I can't read the other two characters.
Oh, traffic sales and profit.
Oh, traffic sales and profit. Okay, just wanted to.
Okay, well, now that we're transitioning, let's talk about the topic of the day. So,
You
Amber
talking
brought
about
this up.
pandemic?
Huh?
Did you say pandemic?
No, I said let's transition to the topic today. So Amber brought this
I thought
up.
you were talking about the virus or something. I thought you said.
No. I didn't say pandemic. I
Oh,
was saying,
okay.
so the topic is about how life in quarantine has, I guess, help you transition in your life. Like whether it be you working and now you're not working, now you're looking at a different avenue for employment or starting your business or just anything. Like how has it affected your relationships? How has quarantine life these past couple months changed who you are as a person in your life and all that?
I save a lot more money.
All right. I'll take that one. I'm waiting around for the Grim Reaper, so I can get up and have a routine. Get up in the morning, go look out, cut my grass, cut the front and back, What else do I do? Part of my routine for the quarantine. Go to the front, to the back, upstairs, downstairs, front porch, back porch. That's pretty much my routine.
I will say I have saved a lot more money, but I've also cared a lot more about my lawn. Like yesterday, I've caught myself pulling Naomi and I was sweeping the sidewalk.
Oh man, you the transition. Oh my goodness.
House ownership.
I saw
you sweeping outside. It's serious now.
I saw somebody drop something.
I was out there sweeping in the street today, getting up the thing, fall off the trees.
It's your future, Joshua.
I didn't see who threw it down, but I saw there was some trash on like our pavement, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna let that stand. Went out there, my little broom, my little dustpan, just started sweeping stuff up. Before you know it, I was sweeping up the whole sidewalk, and I was just like, what have I become?
Next thing you know, you're gonna be cursing little kids running across your lawn. Stay on my grass.
I have not done that, but I have stared at children on my grass.
It's coming. It's a slippery slope, man. First you picking up garbage on your sidewalk, and then you just cursing out little kids running across the grass.
You be chasing leaves. Putting up, make sure some wire at the bottom, make sure no leaves don't blow in the yard.
That might be the next level, Grandpa. What about you, Amber? I know you were talking about blowing the pot in Atlanta.
I am going to leave Atlanta so very quickly. So I've been in Atlanta since September of 2018. I've had an apartment here since September of 2018. I've been living here full time since January of 2019. And it took me 3 months or less to realize that I hated Atlanta. Like, it's not, you know, it's a lovely place. It's beautiful. There's a lot that you can do, but Atlanta is not for me. I do not fit here. And I knew I needed to leave Atlanta when I was talking to a New Yorker who had been here for like 25 years. And he said to me, and I'll never forget it, with a straight face, he said, yeah, you know, I really hated Atlanta when I first got here. And I said, oh, how long did it take you to really like settle in and really like Atlanta? He said, you know, it wasn't until I was 10 years in that I really realized that I wanted to stay in Atlanta. And I was like, wait. You lived in a place that you hated for 10 years, and then you just rage quit and you stayed because you didn't want to leave. And I realized that I did not want to live in Atlanta for, 5-10 years before I was like, yeah, I can be here. I have no husband, I have no kids, I have the luxury of being able to pick up and move to try something different. So quarantine has been really good about making me know that it's okay that I don't want to stay, and that it's okay if I want to pick up and try something different. So I'm in the process of trying to pack up my apartment, which is significantly more cluttered than I thought it was, and make my way back to North Carolina. And then from home base, figure out where I want to go next.
What brought you to Atlanta?
I moved down here for a job. So I was working for a property management company. I got promoted from being somebody who was an assistant for renovations they were doing for one property. And I got promoted to being the project manager for all renovations they were doing across the portfolio. They were doing interior renovations for one of their properties in Atlanta. And they said, well, Amber, do you want to take more money to move to a new place? And I said, well, yes, I do. Thank you for the check. And I moseyed my way on down to Georgia. And then immediately after I moseyed my way on down, they were like, ooh, wait, actually, can you go back to North Carolina and work remotely for a little while? And so I was back and forth between Georgia and North Carolina. And then when I had a chance to really like settle in, Georgia was not it. And I thought, okay, maybe it's the job that's really an issue. So I left the job and I tried a new job, and I still did not like Georgia, and I still hated that job. And so I was like, okay, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. So I can keep trying to get more jobs in Atlanta and different things with different companies and try and make it work. Or I can completely change my life and do something different and just kind of take a step back to regroup, which was some crow to eat. And quarantine especially has highlighted that for me, because throughout quarantine, I realized, after reflecting on the work that I've done for other companies, that I don't like working for other companies. But I've always told myself that in order to be financially secure and to be stable and to keep money coming in and to make that degree that I got worth it, that I needed to go work for somebody else, that I needed to find my dream company and just put my head down and hustle from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday for 52 weeks a year. But I don't think that really, that's my thoughts. That's literally how I feel about it. So now quarantine has given me the option to like try different projects to see what I really like, and really finally wrap my mind around the fact that a path to financial security doesn't have to look one way. It can look different ways. And because I am blessed enough to have parents and siblings who will let me come and stay with them while I develop and live a little nomadically while I really find what it is that I'm going to do, I should, be grateful for that blessing, give thanks for that blessing, and really use it. And I don't, I've felt for a while, even around the time that I was coming to Atlanta, that I am on the precipice of something huge. My life, my energy, the universe has been wanting me to make a transition like this for a little while. And so now quarantine, because everybody's a little slowed down, I have the opportunity to do it. So I'm trying to take advantage of it.
Well, what about if you were there for close to 10? You think 10 years might kind of make you
I
10 years into this?
I think 10 years in would make it so that not so much that I like it, but that I was settled here and I had roots here. So when you live in a state for 10 years, 10 years in the span of your life is not, it's not that long, but like 10 years is a long time. So within 10 years,
particularly your next 10 years.
Exactly, your next 10 years. So it's like when, within 10 years, you're buying a house to have a permanent residence. You have really good friends that you enjoy. You have a routine. You have your favorite wing spot. You got your favorite bar. You have your favorite areas that you like to go to. You're invested within your community. So is it that you really like where you're at, or is it that you've put so many roots down and they've dug in so deep that you don't want to do the work to dig the roots up?
The reason I asked that question though was the lady that you said took her 10 years to like Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
But you've only been there, what, 2 years?
2 years, yeah.
So maybe 4 years might make you feel like you want to stay.
it was probably also a
You
different.
can always come back and visit.
Yeah. I have friends here. I will stay for free. I've got, cousins and family members, and, who knows, maybe in 10 years when I've made my transition and I own my business and I know, the direction that I want to go in, maybe Atlanta will be the right move. And I even find myself when I'm looking around and I'm driving around the city, knowing that I'm leaving relatively soon, I get nostalgic and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna miss Atlanta. I'm gonna miss being able to see cousin Deidre, and I'm gonna miss being able to see, my friend Heather while I'm here. I'm gonna miss that so much. But it's the same way you're nostalgic about high school. No one ever wants to go back to high school, but when you look through your yearbook and you remember the fun things that you had, the fun times that you had, you think, oh, that was a really great time in my life. I want to, I wish I could go back. But you don't want to do the homework again. You don't want to juggle your extracurricular activities. You don't want to deal with the social stuff that comes in with high school. You don't want to hear teenagers talking that lip one more time, especially now that you know better and you're older and you're wiser. It's just.
What about your alma mater, the school song? One of the episodes we had, you remember I broke down, was singing about Cosmos.
Oh yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
My school song,
Dang, that's only I think that's a good thing. I think that's important though, that you got away from, like I think every child should get away from like their main parents for a while to figure out who they are. I remember
definitely so. Yeah.
I remember moving from Virginia, but still I was like, I left where I'm from Michigan. Well, I live in Michigan now, but growing up and went to Michigan State, then I graduated college, went to move to Virginia. So I wasn't near my mom, but I was close to my dad because he lives in Virginia. But then when I moved to California, I was completely away from both my parents. And that's when you take the most growth as a human being, when you can't rely on your parents because they can't just come in and swoop in and save you. So, I mean, but from what I've heard from your story is Atlanta isn't exactly the utopia that they say it is for Black people. Like
it is not, in fact. And I was, unlike you, I always knew, even when I graduated from Howard and I moved back to North Carolina and I stayed for a little while, I knew that in order to reach my final Super Saiyan form of adulthood, I was going to have to move and be away from my parents and be away from my siblings to really understand like who I was. And Atlanta has definitely taught me who I am and what I'm made of and what I'm capable of. And it's been, phenomenal for my development. I've done a lot of personal growth while I've been in Atlanta. but you know, they talk about Atlanta like it's going to be the city. Whenever you hear people talk about Atlanta, specifically for Black people, they talk about it like it's a city version of Howard. So it is, you know, a Black utopia as far as the eye can see, where it's a meeting of the minds. It's the land of milk and honey. You get money hands over fist. Businesses build like that with, you know, traffic, sales, and getting your funnel together. And if you want to do music, you come down here and you make it happen. You'll be a big star. And they say, you know, they say all these really amazing things. And then when you get down here, you realize that, you know, in some ways that can be true, but at the end of the day, at its base, Atlanta is a purple city in a really red state. So it's an experience. I thought living in North Carolina, you know, for 10 years would keep me ready and abreast of what it meant to be living in the South, but Georgia Southern is different than North Carolina Southern. So, you know, Georgia is not for me. Atlanta is not for me. I'm really excited to come back and visit when Freaknik comes back around. I want to try it because I hear it's great, so I'll be back.
That's one thing I wish was around when I was in college. Oh God!
You're never gonna be able to relive the magic.
Freddie, where does Kenny stay in Atlanta?
Say again.
And I was asking Freddie, what does his brother stay in Atlanta?
He's like north of the city.
What's the name?
North of downtown, I know. I forgot the name of where he's at.
Stone Mountain, Decatur, Lithonia, Tucker.
Westonia?
No, that's not it.
No, that's not it.
I thought he lived like 40 minutes away from Atlanta.
I know he's out there.
It's that far. Stone Mountain or something. I don't know. Maybe that's.
I think he may be near Stone.
I know he's north of the city. I know that.
Okay.
He's probably in the like Stone Mountain, Lithonia, Tucker area if he's north of the city, because that's where I am. So I was working in Decatur when I got here. I found a place in Tucker, and I like Tucker because it's kind of right smack dab in the middle of everything I want to do. So it's like a 20 to 30 minute drive to get downtown. It's 20 minutes to get to downtown Decatur, if not less than that. And it's pretty easily accessible to 285 and 85. I can get to 20, I can get to 75. So he's probably
is that near the Tennessee state line?
Not too far from the Tennessee state line.
Seems like I've been through Decatur.
If you've been in Atlanta, I promise you have been in Decatur, because there's
75 then must go through Decatur.
There are some portions of Atlanta where 1 minute you're in Atlanta proper, you sneeze and you blink, and then you're in Decatur, and you sneeze and you blink again, and you're back in Atlanta.
Oh.
Chris say they in Smyrna.
Smyrna, that's where he lives at, ain't it?
Yeah.
Smyrna, I think.
He's not too far. He's not too far from here. I almost lived in Smyrna when I was apartment hunting. And then I was like, okay, I can either commute what was gonna be like 30 to 40 minutes a day to go to work, or I could try and live closer. And I'm really into trying new living experiences because I've been there, done that, some things, why not try something else? So I've done the long commute to get to work and to school before. I did a really short commute of 10 minutes to get to work. And I was like, you know what? Let's see what a 15, 20-minute commute looks like for work. I greatly enjoyed it. This is the wave. We're not doing long distances to work anymore, I've decided. And if I have it my way, my commute to work will be as easy as getting out of bed, getting dressed for the day, and then going to work in a home office to produce what I'm making. So
that seems like the future anyway, right? With the change, everybody's working from home now. Or more people.
Speaking on transitions, I think Amber gave a good explanation on what people our age did. Like, what about you and Grandpa Uncle Poober? What was it like transitioning into adulthood, like during your time?
Did it feel this awful?
Well, you,
Damn, I'm in the 90-year-old category. Like,
No, I mean, we're going
that's what I
generationally.
heard. Like,
We're going generationally. Like Amber, what else?
man. All right.
that question directly to me.
You.
You go first, Grandpa.
One more time, repeat that again.
So Amber gave her
Transition.
she gave her experience in like me and her age group. What was it like when you were like in your late 20s, like, you know, discovering who you are as a person and kind of transitioning from, you know, well, maybe I should say a little earlier because you were already in the military. What was it like leaving home and then kind of being on your own and discovering what it was like to be an adult?
Oh, when I went into the military, right out of high school, me and a friend of mine, we graduated on a Friday. It was because at this particular time in our school district, we graduated twice a year, January and June. So they had 2 classes.
Oh, wow.
And I was in the January class of 47. That's going back pretty far, ain't it? But anyway, going the transition from coming out of high school, you know, and going into the military is like a babe in water, a babe out of water. But anyway, you experience a lot of different things you never knew existed, you know. I'm quite sure you was in Virginia, right?
Yeah. I
was stationed there in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. And a lot of times the military, we'd go down to Howard University, you know, to the classes down there. Fort Belvoir to Howard, you know. And I had experienced what's somewhat like, I decided to do a little heritage. Well, I can't use the word heritage, but anyway, a lot of monumental stuff in Washington, D.C., like the Capitol, you know, and the Washington Monument and Jefferson thing like that. Sometimes I'd take a weekend or something, we just go and do some of the historical sites, you know. Mm-hmm. But my experience really was, I was really surprised because I was born here in Michigan and I came up in, you've heard of Hamtramck, right?
Yeah, it's like right outside Detroit.
Yeah, I took your dad to show you my elementary school. Yeah, it was basically Polish. I don't know, maybe a couple of Black, a couple of Italians, a couple of Irish, but mostly it was Polish kids, you know, in there. But when I got into the military and I went to Washington, D.C., I'm thinking that the atmosphere, everything was basically the same thing, but I was in for a shock, you know, because I tried to go to a movie, you know, and I didn't know that, you know, we weren't allowed to go to the movie, but it's kind of embarrassing when you get in line and you wait and everybody look and they want to know, what are you doing in line? You know, this not time, it's not the show for you, you know. But anyway, that transition there, I guess you kind of grow up pretty fast, you know, as to what you can and cannot do, you know. But you were talking about street sweeping in this Polish town at this particular time. It was a cultural thing for them to paint their front porch all the time, every year. If they didn't paint the whole house, they painted the front porch and the steps and everything. And they kind of, and they swept the street, you know. And I kind of think sometimes it's, maybe some of that cultural stuff might have kind of stuck with me because I'm out there in the street, sweeping the street, you know. But I guess the transition from here to the South was kind of shocking. I knew of, you know, a lot of disparities between the two, but I had never experienced them as such, you know. Mm-hmm.
But I remember you told me a story like when you were in the military, when they were transporting y'all, like once you got to a certain point and going south, they would tell you to get off the train.
Oh, I mean, they put you in back. Yeah, well, they put you into I guess you could call it a milk train part because they put you in there. If Uncle Sam provided you with first class transportation, once you got to Washington, D.C. going south, all of that was taken from you. They put you on what they call like a milk train, a milk cart thing, whereas you couldn't go to the diner, but you had to, if you wanted something to eat, when the guy jumped on the train with a sandwich and a newspaper, you bought it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a kind of awakening. Went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and got there, and you couldn't go in the train station, you know. You had to go behind the train station, you know. And then when you got to Fort Jackson, you got there, you didn't stay on the main post. They had a place for you up in a place called Tank Hill, you know. So I mean, there was a lot of disparities that you didn't know existed, you know, until you experienced it.
So bases were segregated for you in the South, but not up north. Would you guys stay in the same?
No. There was a black army and a white army.
Mm.
And yeah, just like if you check back from World War I, we had the 92nd and 93rd Infantry Divisions and the 92nd and 93rd in World War II, but they were all black. And you had the 9th and 10th Cavalry, 24th and 25th Infantry. It was segregated, you know, everywhere, you know, because I want to went overseas, you know, it was in the last of the Buffalo Soldiers was there at Gifu right before the Korean War broke out, you know. And that was, in 1948, President Truman integrated the military, but it never got overseas. So it was still a segregated outfit. But after the Korean War broke out and they went to Korea, they disbanded the 24th Infantry Regiment of the 25th Infantry Division and combined it, you know, all at once. So that was the beginning of integration, you know. So I've seen quite a bit of transition, and mostly I've seen, you know, basically in the South, because here in the North, there was somewhat of a segregation, but it was a kind of a subtle segregation where you didn't know, nobody didn't tell you couldn't come in, but once you got in, you make you feel, you know that you shouldn't be here. Yeah.
What was it like when infantries started to integrate with one another? Was it odd, or was it a weird feeling to work next to white military personnel? Was it nerve-wracking? Were you ever
I was never really in an integrated outfit, because I got out before the integration got overseas.
Okay.
But I went to schools, some of the main traits, what you call them, where you get your classification. I went to schools were mixed, you know, and I'll tell you, it was an experience, you know, because they didn't accept you as being, you know, part of the military in the school. After class was over, then they would taunt you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an experience, I'll put it like that, but it wasn't. But like I said, I never was in an integrated outfit completely, but I went to school, integrated schools. I went to integrated school down in Belvoir, Fort Belvoir, Virginia, you know. But even when you were on the post, you know, the swimming pool was off limits to you, you know. So
This is crazy.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have seen the change. I have seen a complete turnaround. May not be where we want to go, but I've seen a complete turnaround so far, you know.
So since we're also right now in a time of transition, I always wonder what, right now, whenever I see white brands or just white America in general talk about their allyship, or when I see police departments give a great statement in support of the fight against police brutality, I get really worried, and I think of it as PR service, because they haven't shown that they're actually making changes. So when you were in that transitional period and you saw segregation, and you had white Americans who said that they were all for it and they were gung-ho about it and they acted as allies, was it hard to believe them? Was it believable, or was there a transition period where you really had to just get comfortable with being integrated with white America?
That's kind of a mixed like question. This I had some pictures. I wish I had them handy. I'd show you when I went overseas, and when I went over, and I can never forget the name of the ship, the USS Hodges, General Hodges, and we were all together on this one troop ship, and we were somewhat integrated, with the bed, because you're on a troop ship and they may have 5 bunks, and it's the whole bottom hole is filled up with men,
Yeah.
But then when you get overseas, then you find a separation where you're going in this direction and they're going in the other direction, And then and basically you wind up with I guess I'd say an all black outfit,
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of subtle, but it kind of opened your eyes, I guess you might want to say, what's going on.
Man.
But
it's
anyway, I see. So to me, Freddie will tell you, I'm always talking about the progress. And Freddie might say, well, what progress you talking about? But I come along so long, and I just love it. And one of the things that I like is I love seeing this cultural thing with Black women on TV, and they are powerful and they are strong in their voices and everything. And I just love to see the change. Nobody may not see the change there, but was a time we wasn't even on TV, Newscast, no newscast, no nothing, We were just.
We'll never be able to see the change like you see the change. We'll never be able to see the change.
Well, I know you won't. I know that's why I come on right now. If I say about the changes and somebody say what change,
Yeah, I'm what change?
I know you are.
I'm with Uncle.
Your brother Hank said, what change?
What change? But I mean, in the lens of 90 years, so 50 years from now, I'll probably have a totally different perspective. I'm sure I will, right?
Oh, yeah.
Years from now, your kids will be drinking $50 beer. You will your $20 beer. Like, y'all know what good beer is.
Yeah. And they'll be like, Dad, still drinking that trash. Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. I look forward to it. But I find it interesting listening to you because I'm reading, I'm finishing up now, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. Have y'all read that, Joy?
Not yet.
I've heard.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? But like you talked about being a kid and trying to go to see a movie and not knowing that you wasn't supposed to be in that line, but she talks about because when I heard about the book, I thought it was just like, all of this stuff left over in your DNA that it's affecting future generations, which she talks about that, right? But she goes into trauma a lot more deeper than I thought she was. And she talks about trauma from different perspectives, right? So not only like the trauma that's in your DNA, but experiencing microaggressions, experiencing them happen to you, viewing microaggressions, viewing like assault, viewing murder. Like she just talks about how traumas impact you from all these different angles, right? And when you're Black in the society, you have to.
You're almost like reciting some of Carter G. Woodson's, miseducation. Trauma can hit you to the place where you pick you a place to be subservient. Nobody have to tell you over being.
Right. Well, you're talking about educate. He was talking about educating people.
I mean, in all phases, you just
that's interesting.
When you feel somewhat inferior, you pick an inferior place.
Right, right, and that's done. That's
So-
done through the trauma that slavery impacted, but
That's,
also with,
that's the miseducation.
also with the educational system.
Really quick. Grandpa said a really interesting point about how you pick your trauma when you experience this type of stuff, because there's a few studies talking about, and I obviously can't show it right now because I don't have any paperwork on me, but how trauma can get ingrained into your actual DNA.
That's
like
what,
kind of like how your reptilian brain, like, you know, so for example, a mouse knows to be afraid of a cat, even though it may never have seen a cat before, because it's like in its DNA, it's like, that's a predator, I need to stay away. And the idea is that whatever trauma your ancestors have dealt with, they will reflexively enact in your body negatively.
So that's kind of like the subject matter of post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? But like she talks about it being like almost like telepathic, right? Like where, you know, it's in your DNA, right? Like it's something that's not tangible, right? But also those experiences kind of drive us to rear our children in certain ways, just based upon the generation upon generation of experiences that we've had. So it's like it's in your DNA, but it's kind of coming out through the behaviors that you're being put through and the things that you're experiencing, like getting back to Dad being a child and being in, like, the thing that he said that kind of stuck out to me was like, you're embarrassed. You know, not that this was wrong, this is foul, oh my God, you know, the childlike mind, you're just a child. And like, you're embarrassed because these grown people are so vile of individuals that they won't allow people with darker skin to go into a movie at a certain time, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of like seeing that, the child just feels the embarrassment, right? So she talked about how we have so many of those experiences growing up and that like we inadvertently pass it on to our children, you know, through our actions, through just them seeing us, through our cultural conditioning. Like, it was just interesting. But just all of that you said, like, I just really heard that child part and the embarrassment. And that's just like the deviousness of what has been done to us. Like, it was so psychological. It's crazy.
It's like a blurring of the lines of nature and nurture, because white Americans, they are able to move through life with a different sense of self-assurance because they've never had their humanity taken from them. So what happened is our ancestors had to make certain sacrifices in order to survive and to make sure that their kids could survive. They taught them certain lessons so that they didn't have to have the same trouble they had. That generation that got taught that carried those things that their parents taught them, gained new experiences that also gained new experiences and had to make new sacrifices in order to survive. And so the same sacrifices that their parents made plus the sacrifices that they had to make got taught to their children. And it's a cycle that's gone on and on and on and on and on to this very day, which is why it's a real thing. So there, you know, I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine. We were debating how to be comfortable in predominantly white spaces, and he was saying that, like, well, you know, predominantly white spaces don't really bug me. This is why, this is how I act. I don't mind joking around with my coworkers. I don't mind doing this. I don't mind doing that. And I'm like, wow, you know, I don't understand why that doesn't compute because it's not for the same for me. And then he told me stories about his parents and his grandparents' experiences. And I'm like, oh, wow. So your grandparents had to survive a certain way, and that's still in your family line. That's still taught to you. And like, maybe you never saw a cat, but your great-great-grandmother saw one really, really big cat and she taught it to her daughter, and now forever and ever the rest of your family is going to recognize a cat, and they're going to feel that in their bone marrow. And you know, in my mind, I would like to say trauma doesn't sit in DNA. That's not how DNA works. How can something I've never experienced before sit in my DNA? But I just have to, get pulled over for speeding by a cop, even though I've never been beat by the police, and feel that all-encompassing fear and realize that I'm probably gonna have a panic attack after this man leaves, and I wanna have a panic attack while this man is at my window, but I can't have a panic attack because if my movements are too jerky, it's the difference between me going home and my parents getting on the news crying and giving a conference talking about how I wanted peace when I really want them to riot and burn the streets down.
Right.
Like,
and your hashtag, right?
Exactly. I just don't. So I get it. It's scary. It's sad. And just the older I get and the more I truly understand the depth of it, how sick is it for something as simple as a darker skin tone? I need to worry, I need to worry about things that other people don't have to because of their skin tone. So like I gotta worry, I worry about my sisters, I worry about my brother, I worry about my nephews, because it's like, man, when they start going through their transition phases where they go from infant and baby to toddler, are they going to be out in the store one day behaving how children behave, but because it's a crime to be Black, they'll be treated differently? When my
That's so funny. I'm sorry. That's so funny because she in the post-traumatic slave syndrome, she brought that up, being children in a bank, and she observed these two kids in the bank, one with the white mother, one with the Black mother. And like, of course, y'all already know the Black child had to stay right by the leg of the mama because she don't know what's gonna happen, but the white child is running all over the place, doing any and everything. And like, she juxtaposed this towards the end. I'm kind of giving a little bit away for y'all, but to being in Ghana and being in the bank and wanting to see how was the children gonna react in the bank inside of Ghana as opposed to growing up here. And it was like the child had more freedom of reign over there as opposed to here, because the fear factor of being murdered based on your skin color, whatever the repercussions is, would be heavier here than there. So it was just pretty interesting.
When we went to the slave castles there in Ghana.
Slave castles?
Or cave fortress. I said fortress?
No, you said,
slave dungeon or whatever,
No, when you said slave castles, that I had never heard of that.
Or slave fortress.
Oh, that's what they call them.
Slave fortress, right?
That too, yeah.
Well, I mean, whatever. But I was going to say this, though.
It's just wild something like that exists.
My hero may not be your hero. When we were there at the castle there, and they had these people posted, they had Nelson Mandela, they had Fidel Castro, they had Chou En-lai, Mao Zedong. They had a lot of sort of like a socialist, in a sense, right? But if you take Cuba experience, and they say, why would you want to go to Cuba? That's a communist country. But nobody never talked about Batista, maybe massacring maybe 30 or 40,000 Blacks. They never talked about there was no education until Castro came in there, and now they have a 99% educational rate over there.
That's because that's
the story is always told. When Castro came here to the United States, I think 1955, 56, and he stayed at the Hotel St. Teresa, But he wanted to try to have like a socialist sort of like country, But they called Castro, and the people that left Cuba, they were people that had money. The people didn't have no money. You didn't see none one come across those 90 miles that didn't have anything, So there's a difference,
the big difference. What you just said was, like you said Mandela and you said Castro. Mandela submitted. people talk about him as being a great person, and no disrespect to Nelson Mandela, but like after he was
after Mandela and Castro, I was talking about when Mandela got out of apartheid didn't start no 1920, and apartheid didn't start until the Boers took over when England left South Africa and the Boers took over. That was when the war began, when Mandela went to jail. Now, the first thing that Mandela done when he got out of jail, he went straight to Cuba to thank Castro for fighting 8 years over there in Namibia, trying to save. In fact, probably maybe because we never had any social program, the sanctions against South Africa, but Cuba went over there and freed Mandela. It don't be for Mandela. Cuba wouldn't have been freed. I mean,
Castro.
It don't be for Castro. And he went over, the first thing he went over and thanked him, because he changed the of the whole thing, But I'm just saying, your enemy and my enemy might be two different things,
Well, no, what I'm saying is the reason why Mandela is celebrated even over here and Castro isn't is because Mandela eventually relented. Mandela was all about changing everything on the war tip until he went to jail, and that quelled him a bit. Like after all that time, Castro never submitted. He never said he was going to change what he was going to do. I mean, was he perfect? No, but that's the main difference. Is that
Castro? He was never in jail 27 years.
When they martyr you, or when they put you in a situation where you talk about peace after talking about changing through war. Now you're somehow a good black person, which is wild.
Yeah, but it's wild, but it's pretty, it's pretty typical. What is it that they always say, that when it comes, history is written by those who have been victorious. White supremacy has been victorious, so a lot of history is written within the lens of a white supremacist eye. So it's the same way where about how they talk about Martin Luther King versus how they talk a lot about his early life and what he was doing in peaceful protest and turning the other cheek and marching in the streets, but they don't talk about towards the end of his life where he was sitting down with Malcolm X and he was like, yo, bro, I don't know if I played this right. Did I play this right? Is this what I did? I made, the best decisions that I could, but I don't know if that was quite right. And then right around that time, he started talking that he was gone, and now they never want to talk about that when it comes to Martin Luther King. So it's like, in order for the status quo to stick, history needs to be remembered a certain way. Black activists and Black leaders need to be remembered a certain way. So they want to celebrate Black leaders who were put between a rock and a hard place, and their better option between the rock and the hard place was a somewhat submissive or relenting action. They want to talk about that because it's their jam. It's what they do. They want to say, see, this is what a reasonable, quote unquote, good Black person looks like. And if you just act like this reasonable, quote unquote, good Black person, then you too can have your freedom, but you can have it when we tell you you're allowed to have it, and not a second sooner. And it's why other leaders who were in history, who they didn't like what they were doing, and they were like, nah, I don't agree with what you're doing. I don't think it's the right decision for my people. And so, no, I will not relent and let you treat my people any type of way, or let you just do whatever it is that you want to do for the sake of being polite.
Well, that's a definition for that. It's called a model minority. It's the term they used for was it Japanese people? They would come over and they wanted to be ingratiated and become completely a part of American culture. And forgive me if that's not the right subclass. I just remember reading it like last week about they came in, they didn't ask for too much. They weren't saying they were getting treated badly or anything. They're like, we just want to be Americans. We just want to work and live and not bother anybody. And they were labeled a class called model minorities. and that's a real term.
That's a real term, but even if you had never heard the term model minority, the evidence of it is really really apparent. It's just, once again, the older I get, the more wild it is to me. The more wild it is to me, and then the more wild it is to understand just how deep. It's just wild how deep it goes. It's just really really wild, and
I'm sorry for interrupting you one last time. It's another fun fact about that.
We're out of time. Before we close out.
Hold on, Grandpa, we're not done yet. Hold on,
okay.
It's another part to that. It's like, for example, like the whole minority thing even goes to like you know how like India has like a caste system. Like dark-skinned Indians for a certain time were labeled as white when they came over here as immigrants.
Ooh.
Like, and it was I think it's in the book called White by Law. Like up until like the 1980s when they start coming out with the term people of color, in this country it was just black. You were either black or you were white.
I think it was in 1771 when they decided they wanted to be able to isolate people who were going to be in slavery.
Yeah.
When they came up with the term of white,
Is that
if they labeled you other than white, you're susceptible to the slave trade,
right.
And they're bringing them in. So everybody comes in with color, slaves.
17?
There's no distinction there.
Is 1771 the time? And I don't have the names right, so please bear with me. There was a court case where 3 indentured servants ran away: an Englishman, a Dutchman, and a black man. And the Englishman and the Dutchman, they were like, well, y'all did wrong, but you only have another year on your indentured servitude and then you can go. But for the black man, they said that he had to work for the rest of his natural born life. Is that
when they came up with the white, you were right about the indenture. They weren't the first people that were brought in this country. They weren't slaves because they were indentured servants, and a lot of them came from England as indentured servants. They were able to work their way out until they come up with this law, and they kind of isolated to make you a color would be a slave.
I think what you're
prior
talking
to that, there was integration. They were marrying and everything.
I think what you're talking about, people, Grandpa, is people who got they were tried, instead of being killed, it was called punishment by deportation or something.
Right. Okay. Right. And that's what they came over here with. In 1619, that first load of ship, they were indentured servants. They weren't slaves.
Legally today, that's what peonism is. Like after slavery ended for black people, up until I believe 1960, there were still groups of people who were quote unquote peons or slaves legally because they were owed a land debt. They owed a land debt because when we were given reparations by who was like after Lincoln died, the president right after him was like, nah, y'all got reparations no more, and took away all that land and gave it back to the slave owners and like white people in general.
Right.
And that caused a lot of debt for the black community, which then put them not in slavery, but in peonism, which is in some places actually still legal. So like I remember reading an article where in Mississippi, like this old black couple just found out in 1960 that they were free and had never heard of it. So what is it? Almost 100 years after the emancipation, or maybe a little more 100 years after that happened, there were still black people in slavery.
Because they had in the state of Louisiana, I forget what they call these parishes and things, and they're way out in the boondocks. A lot of people never left the farm or wherever they were, the plantation, wherever they were at. I met a guy, I couldn't believe what he told me. This was in 1950. I was working at Chrysler Corporation. And he told me he had just, I laughed at him. I said, this is a big joke, But he honestly told me he had just escaped from one of the plantations. He said, a lot of people have never been to the big city, never seen it, don't even know they exist, And I thought it was a joke. And then over the years, then you begin to understand that possibly could have happened, I mean, I was shocked, the idea that he was telling me about he had just escaped. Escape from where,
What was his name? Like, is he still alive?
Well, I assume he's older than me. I don't know.
Well,
But
that's a big. That's a
I
big.
don't know if he's still alive or not.
That's a big gem you just dropped. If you met someone in 1950 who said they just escaped from a
We
plantation,
were working that night. He was a young man. He just got a job at Chrysler Corporation, and we were making vehicles for the Korean War at the time. And we were working together, and that's what he told me. And I couldn't believe it. Ain't nobody escaping from no plantation at this age, And I kind of laughed it off. But over the years, I began to understand. You get on those plantations, those folks ain't never been to the city. They don't even know that there is a city.
Man, that does I can't say it doesn't shock me, but that doesn't surprise me at all. This country ain't never been shit. And these people that would claim that you own somebody, you already know that they would milk another couple of decades if they could get it in a heartbeat. So none of that surprises me. It's unfortunate, that's sickening, but just this during the quarantine, right? During the quarantine, I've been making it a point to do a lot of the reading that I missed that I should have been doing. And man, this country ain't shit. It ain't no other way to put it. You could sugarcoat it all you want to, but man, they ain't never been shit. They still act like they ain't shit. They don't want to be shit. So Amber, you was talking about, are they sincere and dealing with hell no, they ain't sincere. None of this shit ain't never been sincere. They only people apologizing, the people that got caught, or the people that's worried about their market share being affected because this movement is taking place right now.
And that's so frustrating because you wanna believe them, you want them to be sincere, and not even just that, the hope that it gives us, and just how good it feels to see these different companies stand with us publicly is, it's finally we're getting the traction that we've always wanted, we're getting the traction that we've always needed, and then it turns out not to be true. Something I am very grateful about the social media age. Say what you will about it and some of the negativity that comes from it. Let's talk about all these companies who have made big, grand public standings about how, we stand with the BLM movement and we stand with our brothers and sisters. And then you have executives who come out with the receipts and they're like, oh, really? You support them. So let's talk about the fact that none of your leadership is Black. Let's talk about how you gave $200,000 to the Trump campaign. And let's talk about the other lobbyers and such that you've given hundreds and thousands of dollars to in order to directly cut the movement off at its knees. So you really, you out here, you stand with BLM. So, what's up? Put your money where your mouth is and making people more aware of it. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you can do the research for yourself and kind of have an understanding. And most importantly, what I am very grateful is that we won't forget. Our kids won't forget. This generation that's even behind me, and I know I'm the baby of the bunch between the four of us, this generation that comes after me, my younger sister's generation and later, they've seen some stuff where we've gotten to experience it. Their generation got to see the video clips, they got to see the news articles, they got to see the newsrooms, they got to see. No, the revolution will not be televised, but it will for damn sure be on Instagram and Twitter, and we'll spread it.
To be replayed, I know that, but
let's talk about what you just said though, the part about corporations. Corporations have a lot to answer for the Black community. For example, a lot of your apparel corporations who use that cotton still got to get up that reparations money. There's a lot of companies who are from the 1800s that
look, let me jump in on that real quick. That's the small end. The people who got filthy fucking rich are the bankers and the insurance companies. That's where they rooted at. That's where they built this wealth. That's where they started spinning it into loans and all of that. Like the financiers of the slave trade and the businesses that was built on their backs, that's who got all the damn money. That's
well,
who.
that's your slave trade. When black people got free, and the government gave them the Freeman Bank, and that was a saving.
They stole, yeah. But these are all these slimy ass bankers. It's the same crew.
Black people never gave it back.
Yeah, it's the same crew. They're not going to either. Go ahead, Pops. I know you're trying to.
That was the seed that put the mistrust of banks and black people from all those years ago.
I have a question I want answer from somebody.
Mm-hmm.
We fought the war of 1898, the Spanish-American War. We took the Philippines, we took Puerto Rico and Cuba from Spain. We took the Philippines, and they were a territory of the United States up until 1947. We took Puerto Rico, and they made a territory out of Puerto Rico. Can anybody tell me how Cuba, which is only 97 miles off the coast of the United States, is neither a territory or do we have any, to Cuba?
When
it's an independent state, but we took it along with Puerto Rico now. Can anybody tell me why Cuba is not a territory?
I mean, I can't give you a historical answer, but I can tell you that Cuba, and excuse my language, but Cuba wasn't with that ish. Like they weren't for that. And so I don't know much about how it went with Puerto Rico and why for Puerto Rico it worked for them to be a territory, but whatever Cuba saw, however they were dealt with, whatever happened behind those closed doors, those conversations, Cuba unanimously was like, oh no, we can't do this, we ain't gonna do this. So what are we gonna do to make sure that we're not gonna be a territory or we're not gonna be a part of
Cuba? In fact, we put Batista in 1940, and Batista ruled with iron fist. The Cuban people never had any over Cuba. We ruled Cuba from here. This is why you had Havana. They used to call it Sin City with the prostitution, the drugs, and the people in Cuba were like working for slaves. They were uneducated. There was something like 50% educated people, and they worked on the cotton places and they worked on the cattle ranches. But we controlled Cuba because the people from down there, from California, came there and brought the Cuba under gambling and everything. So Cuba didn't really, they didn't have no say. So I just want to know why we didn't take it over as a territory, because we had all the power to. We put the people in office because we had the power to do it. We put Batista in there. He stayed in there to about 1950, and then they brought him back again. And he had blood on his hands because he killed thousands of people. Before Castro took over, Batista was nothing but Juan Batista. He was nothing but basically a murderer. So I just want to know why come we had the power to make Cuba a territory or something, but 90 miles off the coast, we had no control over. But we ruled it though.
I wish I knew.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look, he messing with you, Amber. Don't be falling for this. Like he out here throwing bait around. You all right? So why did they keep Cuba like that? Because they wanted to run their illegal operations.
Yeah, they wanted
to run their illegal operations out of a place that was 90 miles off the coast of Miami, and everything was sweet till damn Castro showed up, messing everything up. Castro grew up with the elite, the Cuban elite. He grew up with, think like Bill Clinton, like he grew up with money. He came from privilege, and he knows all of these people. So when he turned his back on them, they couldn't believe it. He went to school with them. He went to all the private schools, all of that opportunity, and he turned his back on them and fought for the Cuban people.
That's why he's so loved. That's why he's so loved over on the continent of Africa.
Right. Oh, not to mention that he understands his African heritage and his roots, and he has sent doctors. He has sent Che to go guerrilla battle all throughout the continent because he understood that independence from this Western terrorist was important globally, not just in Cuba. So when they was fighting the Bay of Pigs, they was fighting also in Africa, fighting the people. So and that's why Mandela showed up.
8 years over there in Africa and in Namibia and stuff. And the people were asking, why are you sending troops over into Africa to fight against South Africa? Because they were the dominant force. And you know what Castro's told them? He said, I'm not sending them troops. So they spoke of black troops. He said, I'm not sending them black troops over there. I'm sending them home. that was his answer.
Yeah.
So basically that revolutionary thing was black troops going over there, taking back some of the stuff from South Africa.
That happened recently.
Castro was big throughout the continent because of what he was doing, not only with the troops, but when Che was going over there and training them in their warfare techniques.
He went over there.
Yeah.
He was over there when Patrice Lumumba got killed there because of the Belgium Congo, you know.
I just read The Scramble for Africa, right? So I've always heard of that term, but I've never did my studying behind it. So the Scramble for Africa is basically the Berlin Conference, 1885, when all the white people got together, they had this conference and they divided up Africa. Yeah. So the Scramble for Africa is all about that time period and the next probably 80 years after that.
The interesting part of that part though is the Belgian Congo was the Belgian people, King Leopold?
Leopold.
Okay, King Leopold, in that 1898 Berlin Conference, they divided it up. He got the Belgian Congo, which is very rich in resources. Rubber is one of the main.
But they got everything, but rubber was the main.
Do you know all that 12 million people just about lost their lives over there?
12 to 15.
It rained, and Leopold's reign in Belgium got rich.
Yeah, they don't lost their lives. Leopold murdered them.
He murdered them.
Yeah, terrible people, man.
That's
terrible.
They don't teach you in schools.
They just lift them up. Cecil Rhodes is a terrible individual.
Did you see what they did with Cecil Rhodes' statue the other day?
Good, they should. It don't make no damn sense. They don't make no damn sense honoring that dude. It don't make no sense. So I'm glad at all of that. But okay, so let's get back to that. So ripping down all of these monuments, all of that shit is cute. You know, that's cute. All right, so basically you're telling racism, you can't hang your monuments up. So you're forcing it underground. So that's all that's really happening. It's just going back underground. It's just going to be subverted. It's going to be the same shit that has always been done, but you got some people claiming to be allies. For Black people, and I go back to one of the other readings I was on. I was reading Garvey, right? So selected writings and speeches of Marcus Garvey. Same shit he been saying, same shit basically everybody been saying. It's time to do for self. So all of this, we back everybody, that's all cool. You want to donate your money? Great, man. Do all of that. But we need to be putting in place things that's going to take care of ourselves nationally and globally, individually. We got to be our own solution. John Henry Clark say, if you're looking for a friend, you better look in the mirror. Everybody else has just sold us out time and time again. I'll say one more thing before I gotta go. I gotta jump into another meeting. Man, I came across this other book, but the cheapest I can find it is $400. It's out of print. I might buy an expensive beer here or there. I ain't bought no books in this price range, right?
That's such a stereotype.
Yeah, I'm a walking stereotype. But the book is called The First Americans Were Africans, right? So this is one of the books that builds beyond, they came before Columbus. You're familiar with Ivan Van Sertima? Yes. They came before Columbus. So this book, The First Americans Were Africans, supposedly, I haven't read it, goes back 250,000 years of basically Africans here in the Americas. Africans all around the world, right? So they talk about, because what has always puzzled me was Africans been on this planet in Africa supposedly for hundreds of thousands of years, right? You go back to Lucy and all of this stuff. but they never figured out how to boat. They wasn't boating. Like, I can never accept that. In fact, me is navigator of the waters, right? Like, but I never understood, like, people acting like, oh, when we first got here in 1619 or 1555, depending on, who and what you're talking about, right? Like, the concept of boating had just been figured out. But anyway, in this book, the first Americans were Africans, talk about the rivers inside of the oceans, right? So they talked about the currents. So apparently, like, people in modern day have taken boats, no sail, no motor, no nothing, from the coast of Africa and rode the currents into the Americas. So they're just they call them rivers inside of the ocean. So apparently there's a few of them that if you want to go into Brazil from Africa, you can get on this one. If you want to go into the islands, you can get on that one. If you want to veer up to, North America or, America or Canada, you can take this one, right? So he like goes through a lot of that. And it just kind of talks about how the civilizations around the world were formed and all of this. So I got some videos on YouTube of the dude talking.
Saying, though,
but I want to buy this book, but I ain't got $400. I'm trying to get somebody to GoFundMe.
Because Columbus come to the New World.
I'm sorry, Pops, go ahead.
I say when Christopher Columbus come to the New World, he had navigators who knew about those very currents that you were talking about.
Exactly.
And that is why he was able to come over here. And if you check and you find out that his navigators were Moors.
We're black. Yeah, we're Moors, right.
There's an even more sinister thing about that. So during the slave trade, right, there was only but like, so what is it? I forgot the exact number, but only so many black people who came from Africa to America. There was already a good portion here, which Uncle Pooh Bear was saying, but what they did was they took these people, they put them on boats, and they transported them to different places so that it was something I was reading about landmass and your rights based on that, because you can't just take a people and then have them work their own land. Like there's this stuff against that, but you can kidnap them and take them to a different place. So the black people who were already here, the melanated, or whatever you want to call them, so-called black people, whatever you want to say, that were already on this landmass, were transported to other places in the world to be enslaved, or they would do something where they would take them on the boat, make it seem as if they take them to another place, and just took them to another part of America, and made it and just told them they were another part of the world. And that stuff accounts for the large number of black people that were here. Because if you go by the numbers, supposedly, what was it? How many people were enslaved at total? Like 8 million at one time?
I think it was higher than that.
Yeah. But like supposedly they only brought in from Africa only 1 million people, and it wasn't like slave breeding was exponential. Like they were killing people too. So there's some schools of thought and some research that was done that says that, just like how you were saying black people were already in North America, that there were black people already here that they had captured, and then
there's no doubt about that.
And
just
then
based on Ivan Van Sertima,
and just taken to different places just to take the land, and then didn't educate them, and when people get taken different places, they don't know where they are, and stuff, and confusion just happens from that. Like that's a big thing. Like this, I mean, we can go into it more, but we got to end the show. Apparently, people got stuff to do. But
As we're ending it, Sean, this is your show, but I think I would like the four of us to take something with us and to bring it with us to our interactions with our families and our friends. Uncle Pooh was saying that in America and globally, Black people need to find a way to take care of themselves and to continue to foster things within our own community that take care of us. So my question that I'd like us all to think about and to act on is, how do we go into that transition? How can we use quarantine to empower people within our community to make that change? The same way where Uncle Pooh has his business, I'm trying to make mine. Sean and Grandpa built this show from something that started with Grandpa trying some beer that Sean had into the house to what we're doing now, where I get a phone call in the middle of the weekend and I get to drink beer and have fantastic conversation with you.
Right.
Like, how can we continue to foster that within our community?
When me and Joshua was pretty sure you saw it.
First one.
I just had to ask that question. I didn't know we had an audience.
I saw the first one, but like, what are we? Black people, we are creative. We're smart. We have all these ideas, but sometimes we don't have the same opportunities to be able to implement ideas that are really good and would allow us to create stability for ourselves. So how can we foster that within our community? And what can we do so that these people who are sitting on these ideas and these thoughts and things, how do we allow them to use quarantine to transition into a place where they can do it for themselves?
I like that. You know what, though? I would like for each one of us to pick us a hero in our Black heritage, Black history, whatever. And I'm going to start out, and I'm going to pick me one.
Okay.
And that's going to be Paul Robeson. I would like for all of us to do a little research on Paul Robeson and see what the man, who some people don't even know existed. The man was a great baritone singer. He was an All-American football player. He was an opera. I mean, I said baritone. He was an actor. He was all these things. And when I came up, he was on the movies when we didn't have no access to the movie. They used to have what they used to call excuse me. But anyway, when I was coming up as a youngster, Paul Robeson was on the TV. I mean, in the movies. But we had what they call, like on Wednesdays, it played low budget Black movies. And I've always thought of Paul Robeson as my hero. And I wish somebody would maybe kind of go along and we talk about Paul Robeson maybe next week, whatever. If anybody
I'm always down for a good conversation about Paul Robeson. That's my man, man. So
he was. I mean, he's an American. He don't get the credit like.
And I can
the Frederick Douglass or the Du Bois or nothing, but Paul Robeson was an iron fist in our community, man, and he challenged a lot of things. And they tried to destroy him, you know.
He got sold out. He got sold out by Jackie Robinson, called him a communist. And
I mean, what Jackie just probably went along with it.
Jackie gonna apologize later in his life. Same classic shit that white people do.
He was trying to
apologize after the fact. He tried to destroy that man on record. He tried to destroy that.
And they studied unionism.
Yeah. Well, hold on. All right, we gonna talk about that later, right? So I'm gonna do both.
You gotta pull that in for another episode, Grandpa.
Yeah, I do both. So
I mean, that's my hero. So
I give my hero. My hero is Colin Kaepernick because I'm absolutely loving it, and I love how everybody is backpedaling now. The NFL's trying to embrace this whole thing, and folks trying to come back. And the beauty of it for me is Colin Kaepernick ain't said shit. He won't address them. He won't speak to them. He won't. Well, if he would just come out and say something, I love it. And that brother is focused on what he made his steps, and they looking like assholes. And he's going about doing what he think is right. And to get on Amber's point, I think that's what we got to do is to continue to support the people and the individuals that we think is right, but we got to do it with our bucks, right? So like my thing is I wanted to start a nonprofit, right? I was like, I should do this nonprofit. And then I realized there's so many nonprofits already out here that's doing all the damn work that we talking about doing. They just need support. So why don't we just support the nonprofits that whatever the nonprofit is that you know that's doing good work in your community? I think that if everybody just supported, right? So, but my grandiose thought about trying to make an impact is gathering people willing to give $10 a month to a different nonprofit organization. Because if we got 1,000 people willing to give $10, we could drop $10,000 on whatever this organization is. But if we had 10,000 people, we can drop $100,000 every month. And if we just continue to band and work together, if everybody just gave their part, that's really the crux of the point, is everybody just did their part. So as we scatter back to our corners of influence, right? I think we just encourage one another to give to organizations that are doing the work. Not like Black Lives Matter, not like the Red Cross, where you find 5 to 7% of the money is actually going to the front line. I'm talking about
administrative
organizations in your community doing the work that, you know, when you give $100, 99 of them dollars gonna go to feed the community or whatever.
Right. I'm with you 100% on that.
I guess my great thought, ending thought, would be to I guess piggyback off everyone said, vote with your dollars. There's not just one way to vote. Voting economically is very important. When you're like we just talked about a lot of topics today, everyone's not going to know what we're talking about. It's okay to be patient. It's okay to let people know, especially if they don't know, because they might want to know. And just, you know, if you make it hard for them, then now you done made an enemy, and everything you said is, you know, it's going to be wrong, and that doesn't help anybody for this cause. And I guess I would say lastly is this is just my personal opinion. Everyone in the Black community has this idea that they need to be a boss. Let's just work together. Like, if everybody's a boss, who's working together? Like, who's doing what? It's like there's nothing wrong with being a collaborative effort. Like, you get more done together than you will saying, "Oh, I'm the CEO of my one-person company, which is just me," and that doesn't help anyone, and it's not honorable. And we're in a time of distress. Let's just try to get everybody together at the same time. That's my closing thought. As usual, I always ask Grandpa to sign off the show with whatever he wants to say. You want to sign off, Grandpa, so we can end the episode?
Well, I'm gonna be a silent sign off as usual. I'm gonna salute all of y'all because I enjoyed the conversation that we had. It was beautiful, really. You know, I mean, a whole lot of thoughts came into our mind. You know, and everybody, maybe we can do this again.
All right, let me know. Always got time.
Yes,
all right, well, until next week, y'all.